Sherry Price Clark of Storehouse Media. Sherry, how are you? And I know you like you're excited about our guest today.
Hi, Neil. Yes, I am. I am excited. Thank you. His name is Jeff Wheatley, and Jeff Wheatley reigns from Greenville, South Carolina, and is the Vice President of Mortgage at the MTC Federal Credit Union. So, from my understanding, Jeff, I'm super excited. So, welcome being here.
Happy to
So, we
be
want to
here.
talk well, we want to talk a little bit about you, a little bit about MTC. So you started, people who are looking at maybe this kind of career path, you started as a loan originator, right?
I did.
Um,
I did. I
hot
did.
minute ago.
A few minutes ago, yeah, I started about 34 years ago. I got in the business back in, we were actually handwriting everything. So, everything was done by paper, typewriter, Xerox machine, fax machine. So it's been a few years, but yes, started as originator, worked my way up to a top producer, became a manager. Um, After I did that, went to back to school, get my MBA, got back into the mortgage business on the behind the scenes side, where they do more of the financing side that most consumers don't know about, but have stayed more in the forefront over the last few years, basically managing departments with originators, processors, and things like that, from baby soup to nuts. That's things I like, helping people figure out their finances to buy a home. It's kind of one of my loves.
Yeah, and it's something you figured out that this is something you really love to do, right?
Uh,
And then it's a process, right?
it is a process. I guess when you spend a couple of years doing it, there's a lot of twists and turns in it, but once you get into it, it's kind of hard to get out of it because again, there's lots of aspects to it, but you meet all kinds of different people, all different walks of life, and kind of the joy is people that know what they're doing, it's joyful to help them too. But then those that really want a hand holding, it's even extra joyful to help them out.
Okay.
So you became a loan originator. Like what even made you wanted to get into that arena? Did you get a degree in finance or there just happened to be an opening like a lot of our, a lot of us do when we graduate? It's like what's
Right.
available?
Yeah, well, I got out of college. I got a degree in actuarial science, which is a lot of statistics and math. I love numbers. I like finance and things. And so I got out of school. I did a short stint in basically public relations in a government agency. I'm originally from Springfield, Illinois, but what happened was I just wanted to get in where I could do, use numbers and things like that. So in 91, I had an opportunity to move to Chicago, become a loan originator for a bank there. And when I started, rates were 11%. So things were a little bit tough. Yeah, a little bit different than today. But that year rates started to go down and well, they got down to the nine. By the end of the year, we were probably close to 8.5 by the end of December of 91. And it just kind of took off from there. Like I said, I did a lot of new construction business, but the concept of meeting with people, working through their finances with them, putting them in new homes. I mean, you took applications and people brought their kids. I mean, it was like 2 hours at night. So, um, I did that, and just kind of was the springboard for me to staying in the business. It's different every day. Nothing's the same. You may see a repeat 6, 9 months down the road, but really every family, every individual is different, and you kind of have to structure around that. Everybody thinks differently. Some people are more financially conservative than others, and you just need to walk people through and make sure they understand. So, I like that concept, and that's kind of how I got into it.
Where do you see the industry going?
Well, the industry right now is kind of in a tug of war a little bit. The last couple of years, people think rates are high. Like I said, I started at 11. Rates are not high. 30-year fix is right around 7. But when 2020 came around and 21, people were getting rates in the threes and fours. So there's that mentality that rates are there. But I think the market's going to open up a little bit eventually. There's areas are high priced, low inventory, or they're good priced and low inventory. And part of low inventory is people aren't moving. They don't want to budge off. I can sell my house real high, but then I got to go buy high, and then I got to go get a higher interest rate. So I got to go from 3.5 to 6 or 6.5, and I don't want to do that. So that's been the stalemate. So when stuff goes on the market, it goes quick. Most people are fast to get on a new contract right away. But I think the market's going to loosen up a little bit. If we were to get rates, 30-year fixed rates are just at 7 or just below. If they were to get down to 6.5, I think you might start see people justifying moving. I'm not a big interest rate person. You have to get people to move. There's a starting point. The first time home buyer has to have a place to go. That person has to move up. So, it's like a domino effect. Things have to move along, but I'm more of a cash flow. Every household has a cash flow, and that's what's important, whether you're a first-time home buyer or a long-term homeowner. But I do see the market start loose up. Pricing houses have settled a little bit, so they're actually coming down a little bit, which is good for buyers, and it kind of then pushes sellers because they don't want to leave money on the table. So I think 2026, if rates stay in the 6.5 range, 30-year fix, you can get an adjustable 5.5 probably around then. I think you'll see I think you'll see a pretty good spring market in 2026. And it's all territorial. Down here in Greenville, South Carolina, a lot of people are moving here, so we're pretty fluent right now. We're doing a lot of business. I came from Chicago market. It's a little bit slower there, more competitive type of thing. So, again, bigger markets are probably a little slower. You get into some of the not the top 10 metro areas. You get to some of the smaller areas, top 50. You're going to see a lot of movement in spring.
Yeah.
You were talking about prices, and it just kind of blows my mind how the real estate market, it just blew up with prices. And I keep thinking, like, how do we sustain these high ticket prices on housing? And do you think, even though you talked a little bit about the housing market, going to be some kind of bust in this real estate bubble?
Well, I mean, there's been lots of busts since I've been in the industry. I've seen a few,
Yeah.
and the thing is that markets get overheated, prices get too high, people purchase, prices go down. And from a mental standpoint, it's disappointing. I mean, I know people are like, well, I bought this house and I'll make up a number. I paid 250 for it now. They're out there telling me in all these search engines the property's down to 230 or 220. Well, keep in mind, we all have to live somewhere. So that's the first thing. So, secondly, when you own a home, you're paying down your mortgage, so you owe less every year. The value should go up. It does go down. We've had these bubbles. We haven't had, major crash connections of corrections of 15% or anything like that in a long while. But if it ebbs and flows a little bit, as long as you stay there, the average, if you were to go out and look over maybe a 20-year history, when I got in the business, 3.5. If you get 3.5% a year out of your property, one year you might get 10, the next year you might get 0. I mean, now you're at 5. So if you get 3.5, you pay your mortgage down 1% a year, and you're not moving every 5 years, which some people do. It's a good investment. I mean, you can't look at the short term. I mean, similar to the stock market, you buy a stock today for 40 and tomorrow's at 32. You don't go jump off the cliff. You sit around and wait, type of thing. A little bit shorter time frame there, because you can get in and out of the market. But generally speaking, I wouldn't get too much worried about 10% correction, because again, you're creating value by paying down your mortgage, and again, you get 10% on the other side. So the market's pulled back again. I mean, the market I came from a market up in the Chicagoland area, and 2024, I mean, houses were lasting 1-2 days on the market and were way overpriced. Well, they've come back. They're staying on the market longer, and they're real more valued where they're supposed to be. So if you bought at the high end and you're not going anywhere for 10 years, you really probably have nothing to worry about. If you're trying to flip properties, it's probably not a great idea.
All right. So what are the best tips for our listeners right now when it comes to?
Well, I'd say the best tips is that, I mean, if you're looking to buy a property now, first thing you really want to do is you want to get pre-approved. And there's a difference between being pre-qualified and pre-approved. I can pre-qualify you in the grocery store checkout line because I can do the numbers in my head. I can say, yep, you can buy that house. You could afford it. You get a letter that says you're pre-qualified. Basically, that's what you've done is you've submitted information to a loan officer. They've ran your credit and you've given them no concrete documentation. So somebody tells me how much they make on an application. I say you're pre-qualified. Take the next step. You filled out the application, get pre-approved, send in your tax return, send in your pay stub, send in your bank statements. What happens is what we do here is at MTC Federal is we'll take that and we actually move it to an underwriter. That underwriter looks at that loan as if you had a property. The only thing missing is you don't have a property. At that point, you're now pre-approved. You actually have a piece of paper that says you can afford this amount of a mortgage payment, this purchase price, and you can go out and now make an offer, and a seller is going to look at that and say, that's like a cash buyer. So that would be the first thing I would tell people, go through the process and get pre-approved. Pre-approvals will last about 90 days. You'd have to update some documentation on that, but that gives you time to shop. And that's what you wanted them to do, is you want to get them out of the market. Now, three people, Neil, Sherry, and Jeff are all going to go bid on that property, and Neil's the only one with a real pre-approval. I'm going to take his, they're going to take your pre-approval because you're gold. You've actually gone through the mortgage process. Other thing I would tell people, especially first-time home buyers, make a budget. Do a budget. Look at your household cash flow. How much you're paying in rent? How much is your auto? How much is your credit cards? Everybody has electric bills, gas bills, and cable. Those are never going to go away. But look at those numbers and then figure out what your buying power is. The best way to do that is talk to a mortgage person. Let them walk you through and explain how you have to pay principal and interest, taxes, insurance, and all those things. And then once you have that information, work with a realtor. Realtors know their market. They know what they're doing. They know what's selling in the market. They know how to negotiate that market. They know each other. One real estate agent knows another agent. So never discount the real estate agent. They are great helping you get the contract, and they are also very good at keeping things moving forward. Once the contract, they just don't disappear. They're making sure the place gets appraised. You get your inspection. Is there any problems? So, you create your team. So get your budget together, get your pre-approval for sure. And then at that point, get yourself a solid real estate agent who knows their market. Every market's different. So don't get somebody that's, 50 miles from the market you want to buy in. Get somebody that's in the market you want to buy in, because they're going to know who's, what's, when's, and where's of that market.
Very interesting. And Sherry, it's interesting to get these tips, aren't they? They're very intriguing.
It is. Jeff and I had a conversation, I guess it was last week, time flies, right? And he really brought up some really interesting tidbits that I think, listeners and viewers would appreciate. And that's really like, if you want to buy a house or refinance, he was talking about your debt and including debt. And he went into a great detail. And I thought, well, this is some interesting information if you want to, if you're looking at buying a house or refinancing a house, how you can actually reduce your debt, right, Jeff?
Right. Yeah. I mean, as I was saying earlier, I got in the market at 11%. So I'm not, interest rates don't mean much to me. It's a number on a piece of paper once you close your loan, but unless you're at a cocktail party telling somebody that you got 2%, no one really knows what your interest rate is. The real thing you want to know is what's your household cash flow. So everybody has to live somewhere. So if you're renting, how much does rent cost you? What's your automobile cost? If you have a loan on your auto, how much do you pay in credit card debt? So we'll bring people in here at MTC, and we go through the whole finance, one-on-one education process here. That's what we're about, is educating people. So if you're paying, I'll make up numbers, but if you're paying somewhere around, let's say you're paying $1,500 a month or $1,600 a month with an auto loan, you got some credit card debt, and your rent say $1,100. So you got $350 car and $250, and then $1,100 in rent payment. Talk to people like us at MTC Federal, because you don't need to put down 20%. you can get what we call private mortgage insurance. Private mortgage insurance is very inexpensive. It's cost, could cost you anywhere from 70 to 150 a month, depending on what your loan amount is. But instead of putting 20% down, if you put 10% down, and I took the other 10% and wiped out your car loan or wiped out your credit card debt, I actually could put you in a positive cash flow from what you're sitting on now renting into a home, and you could be saving $100 a month. So you don't want to get caught up in that. And that works for people that are already in a home and refinance. We talk to people all the time, and I'll use the example as the same example. I've got 3.5% of my mortgage. I don't want to get rid of it. Okay, but you're also paying $1,000 in two car loans and credit card debt. If you let me refinance you, do a cash out refinance, I can wipe out all that debt. I'm stretching it back over 30 years. Is that great financial planning? We're not worried about financial planning here. We're worried about monthly cash flow. You're struggling. You're already, that's why you called us. And then I can reduce you and save you $500 a month. Now that's real money. I mean, if I knocked on your door and said the first of every month, I'm going to hand you a check for $500, I'd have a line out my front door. People will be signing up all day long. So it's understanding what your cash flow is and what you're doing with your money. It's the same with home equity lines. People don't want to give up their 2.5%, 3.5%. We'll do the math for you. It might be better to give you a home equity line of credit, pay off that same debt, reduce that, create a new cash flow for you. But that's not where it stops. Now you got to be disciplined. I mean, you can only be throwing a lifeline so many times to bring you back in and take that extra money. So if you could afford that extra 1,000 a month, and I can bring it down to 500, now you got 500 to prepay. You got 500 to go somewhere else if you can afford it. If not, you're, like you said, you're trying to squeeze things down, type of thing. So again, I'm all about monthly cash flow. What that is all that really matters. You get a paycheck. How much money do you have? How much is going out the door at the end of the month? No one cares about what your interest rate is. No one's interested in if you've got a 15-year or a 30-year mortgage. That's not what's important. What's important is, can you afford it? Because I always go back to, we all must live somewhere. We have to have a roof over our head somewhere if we're going to work every day and things like that. And then that kind of leads into the whole first-time home buyers, why I said get a budget. These people need to get a budget, and they need to understand what their budget is. We have programs here at MTC Federal where we can do 10% down and you don't have any private mortgage insurance. Well, that's an extra $150 a month in savings. So, that's a program that we have. I'm sure that we're not the only ones in the world that have that program, but that's why you want to get to the loan officers and talk to them and find out what's going on. First-time homebuyer programs. There's more than just FHA as a first-time homebuyer program. Fannie Mae has a first-time homebuyer program. So, but my light went out. Oh, there it goes. We have a first-time home buyer program, and ours is unique. Ours is no money down. So we have a very unique program. It's a tight box. You got to have particular credit, certain amount of income, and things like that. But no money down. I mean, that's key. If you're out buying a $250,000 house and you don't have to come up with 10%, $25,000, that's an important thing. So again, budgeting, cash flow. Those are the two things I would recommend everybody do first and foremost if they want to start looking for a home. Talk to somebody at, like here at MTC or somewhere else, and get the information you need, and then go talk to a realtor, and then the realtor will help you get to the next step from there.
Absolutely. And that's the simple process. And I think you're right about they need that extra dollars. They need those extra dollars. And if it's that simple, why do it? And you're seeing ultimately we're going to see a change in the market again. So just now, if it doesn't seem like a great market, you might lock into it, lock in now, get an opportunity, and then things could just blow up with seeing property values going up again. So
Yeah,
we could go through this again. If we could
exactly.
have and you lucked in by now doing this and missed out on a potential. You've seen in the industry where how much has properties gone up at one point in time after you've invested in a house.
Oh
You've seen
yeah.
it times unbelievable.
Right. Oh, exactly. I mean, I bought a property myself back in 2010, lost a little equity on it in 2011. And then when I turned around and sold it 8 years later, I was way, way, way above water, made plenty of money when I walked out away. You're not, it's not the stock market. That's not what your house is about. But again, you still want to, do well and make money and things like that. And people don't remember, but in 2017, check my numbers later, but 2017, we were sitting at 5.5, 6% on ARMs. We're right there. And it was decent. It was a decent market. People bought, people made money when they sold.
So explain adjustable rate mortgages for people.
Okay, so adjustable rate mortgages, adjustable, exactly the key term, but what it is, it's a 30-year loan. So the loan is amortized over 30 years, just like a 30-year fixed loan. So your payment's going to be based on 30-year term. However, your rate's only fixed for a certain period of time. So we have we have a 7-year arm, what we call, it's called 7-1. And for the first 7 years, your interest rate is fixed. At that rate, it won't go up, it won't go down. It's fixed just like a 30-year fixed mortgage. And at the end of the 7th year, that's when it starts to adjust. And it'll adjust every year after that, year 8, year 9, year 10. There's protection for you as the consumer borrower. There's a cap, can't go over a certain amount. They calculate the new interest rate two ways, one using the cap and then using what they call an index like the treasury bill plus a margin. So each time they go to calculate your rate, it can't go up more than 2% per year. It can't go down more than 2% per year. So it can move around, and then that would be your new rate. And again, you're still trying to pay it off over 30 years. But what people really need to realize, I'm a big fan of the ARM. Two things are very important to understand about the ARM. The first is today's 30-year fix is at 7. My 7-year ARM is at 6. That's a whole 1% difference in payment. That's a big number. That can make or break a deal for somebody. The other key aspect of it is, because I've been doing this a long time, the average life of a mortgage, any mortgage you take, whether it's 30-year fixed, 20-year fixed, 7-year ARM, is 7 years. People don't stay, they either refinance, people get divorced, somebody buys out somebody else, they take cash out to pay off other debt, they move. There's all kinds of reasons, but the average life of a mortgage is about 7 years. So that's why I love the 7-year ARM. It gives a big break to the homeowner on a monthly basis. Is there risk? Yeah, there's some risk. What do you do at the end of 7 years? Well, at the end of 7 years, I could probably refinance you, and I could probably put you into a 20-year mortgage, even not knowing what interest rates are, and your payment will probably be pretty much the same, if not lower. And I actually took you from 7 and added you to 20. So I took 3 years off your loan. So I eliminated 36 if you want to stay there the entire life of the loan. So, people that are risk averse don't like them, and that's okay. But there is value in them. They're not really, again, it's not for somebody that plans on keeping the mortgage for 30 years. You can, there's no problem with that. But it's more somebody that's going to be there, move up buyer to the next level. Maybe they're first time buyer, they want to go to the next level, or maybe their job relocates them every 5, 6 years. It's a perfect loan for them. But I think it's a great loan for everybody, because loans don't last that long. They just don't last more than 7 years in the general secondary market.
All right. That's
Yeah.
great.
Yeah, your mortgage is like your big investment. Like most people, that's the biggest investment they'll have. So, speaking of somebody like you who's been around the block a few times that know this stuff is fantastic, because even though your mortgages, you're like a financial planner. Like, I never thought of things that way. So if you have a home now and you got hit with a high rate, do we need to wait till 2026 to refinance, or what would you suggest? Or
Yeah. Well, the beautiful things about loans is you can refinance them anytime you want. So you can close a loan today and come back to us in a week or 4 weeks or 6 weeks and say, I want to refinance. So every loan's refinanceable. The FHA, the loans with lower down payment are a little bit harder to refinance, but pretty much every loan's refinanceable. Some people say, oh, rates got to drop 0.5%. They got to drop 1%. Every household's different. It's going to cost you probably about $2,000. You have title fees and appraisals and stuff like that. So it was just ballpark $2,000. Every time you want to refinance, it's going to cost you a couple $1,000s. Couple key things to that is most people never pay anything when they refinance. They just roll it back into the loan, which you're allowed to do. So you can roll the cost into the loan. So if you owe 188 and you want to borrow 190, it just goes back into the loan, spread out over 30 years, so it doesn't cost a lot. But the other thing is, I'll drill it home as many times as I can. It's cash flow. Why are you refinancing? If you're refinancing to chase the market to save, $30, $40 a month, then you're probably more of a speculative person. So you just want to watch rates. If you're refinancing because you think it's a good time to do it and you want to save some money, then you do the math. Like I used 500 earlier, but years ago, mortgages are much bigger today and stuff, so it's different. But years ago, we used to tell people, if I knocked on your door the first of every month and said, here's your $100 bill, would you refinance? Well, do the math. So if you're going to do that, that means after 18, 20 months, it's going to take you to get your money back. Are you going to be there in that time frame? And if the answer is yes, well, of course, everybody wants $100 at the front door. But again, if rates dropped 0.5 point and you have 2 car loans, people buy cars are expensive now. So car loans now are $500. I see it all day long. People have 2 and 3, two $500 car loans. I know the car loan's 7 years, but you own it now. If I take that car out now, you own, that's an asset, 100% free and clear asset, and you just buried it in. So if you have $1,000 in car loans and you can come back to me and refinance and I can save you 500, I saved you $500, and now you have 2 cars that are paid for free and clear. Why wouldn't you do that? It's like I appreciate you saying about the financial advisor, because a lot of mortgage people don't get that credit, is that we do spend a lot of time walking people through their finances and showing them here and showing them there. And the reality of it is that that's no different if they went to a financial advisor. It's the same thing. And we're using your biggest asset that really can help you if there's equity there and things like that, or you can restructure your numbers to do it. So if you're sitting at 7.5, you probably should already be talking to somebody about refinancing. Because that market's already there. If you want to wait until January, February, yeah, you probably could get a little bit more out of it, but $200,000 loan is not going to have as big of impact as a $500,000 loan. So it's all a numbers game.
Exactly.
But you want people to, I always like, what's your budget? Are we struggling? Do we need an extra couple $100? So let's go talk to a mortgage guy and see what we can do with our house. Can we get a home equity line? These are the things that people don't do. We all go to the physician once a year to get a checkup, right? To make sure that, the old body's working well and things like that. There's no reason to call up your mortgage guy who you did your business with and say, hey, tell me what's going on in the market. This is how much I owe. This is my new financial picture. We'll talk to you. This is what we do for a living.
All right. Best place people can find information on you. Where can they go?
mtcfederal.com. Go to our website. We have information out there. You can click on the link. It'll get right to us. Just fill out a short little form and we will get back to you. Like I said, our job is financial education. We want to help everybody out, but if you just go to our website, that'll be great.
All right. And go to storehousemediagroup.com for publishing and so much more, especially some of the marketing. Appreciate it, guys. That was a special simulcast of the Neil Haley Show and the